Today we're talking about the psychological thriller from Jan Ole Gerster, which is called Islands. He's a German filmmaker and screenwriter who made a film called Lara back in 2019. Chris is here. Hello, Chris.
Hey, Phil. How are you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, girlfriend.
Oh, no. We're not doing that.
No, we're not doing that. No, we're not. Quick question for you, first of all. Did you recognise the location for this movie? Have you been to Fuerteventura?
I have never been to Fuerteventura, but I've been to other Canary Islands. I'm going to Gran Canaria next year, and I've been to Tenerife.
Because I've been to Lanzarote twice. A long time ago. It's probably 25 years ago, 20 years ago. But yeah, so a good location for a movie, I think, for a mysterious movie like this.
Beautiful.
Let's talk about the story then. So this film stars Sam Riley as a washed-up tennis coach working at a hotel resort. He becomes entangled with an enigmatic couple played by Stacey Martin, who was in The Brutalist, and Jack Farthing, who was in The Lost Daughter. The film premiered to critical acclaim, actually, at the Berlin Festival. It's released here in the UK and Irish cinemas on the 12th of September. So the director who made this, Jan Ole Gerster, he was apparently inspired after staying in a hotel. I think there was somebody who was staying in a room below him who was a tennis coach, and I think that's where he got the idea for the story. So the film follows Tom, who's played by Sam Riley, a former professional tennis player who now works as a coach at an all-inclusive hotel in Fuerteventura in the Canary Islands. He fills the emptiness he feels with fleeting affairs and lots of booze.
Don't look at me like...
Because I don't drink much anymore, but watching this made me feel kind of nauseous. Because I remembered that feeling of being hungover, especially in the sunshine. If you've been away, have you ever been on holiday and really hungover, and it had that kind of hazy feel about it?
Yeah, every time I go on holiday, that happens. It's really kind of evocative, isn't it? And it's interesting watching it at the end of the summer because you're kind of still you're kind of hanging on to the last vestiges of summer, watching a film that's kind of set on a holiday resort and all that kind of stuff. And I found that really evocative, actually.
Have you ever worked abroad? Have you ever been on a holiday camp or, because a friend of mine was working in France, in the south of France, and I went to stay with her for a bit because I was out of work at the time, briefly out of work. And it was just in the period before leaving art college, and then actually moving back to London and getting a full-time job in a record shop, actually, at our price. And I was kind of tempted. I was toying with the idea of doing what she was doing, like being a holiday rep or something like that. And it just, watching this just reminded me, a different location, but it just reminded me of that feeling of, I don't know, feeling a little bit lost and kind of, drinking too much and, having those kind of thoughts of isolation.
As beautiful as Fuerteventura looks in this film, it's definitely a sort of no place as well. It could be just anywhere. It's a generic holiday destination with generic things in it, a very generic hotel, generic people, no culture to speak of, not very much. And, there's a kind of blandness about it, isn't there? And I think that's the monotony of that is something that the tennis coach depicts really well. They're sort of trudging through life. And I think what's really interesting is just to skip to the end about the questions it raises about, is he just in a cycle of this? Is this just something he does continually in different locations? Or does he just stay here doing it? Is this his first rodeo? I find it really interesting.
Yeah, so he meets the very mysterious Anne, who she's with her husband and their young son. The husband is Dave, who's played by Jack Farthing. They arrive at the hotel. The family doesn't fit the typical image of tourists. They're quite mysterious because she seems to be quite infatuated with Tom initially. And alarm bells were ringing for me because there's that moment where she asks him if her son can have tennis lessons with Tom. And she's kind of staring at him, and you just get the impression that they've met before, or that she fancies him and she wants to have an affair, and obviously her husband's there. Her husband and her don't seem to be getting on that well. They kind of get on, but she seems dissatisfied.
Yeah, definitely. There's a real sense for the first half of this film of kind of disquiet, and there's, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed the pace of it. 2 hours, before I put it on, I was like, 2 hours, have I really got to sit through another 2 hours for Phil? But, about 45 minutes into it, you realise that 45 minutes has gone past, and there's this kind of pregnancy to it. There's this kind of, you're waiting for stuff all the time. And part of it's about that kind of dynamic about, do they already know each other? Have they met before? Is there some previous here that we're going to unearth and discover? And there's a real kind of expectation about the whole thing, which is really tense. I found it really, really good. I was really swept into that.
Yeah, we'll come on to that tense feeling because, yeah, I've got something to say about that, which I shall say towards the end. But let's just talk about Sam Riley first of all, because I don't know if you've seen him in the Joy Division biopic,
Yes.
which is Control. Wasn't he fantastic in that movie?
He was fantastic in that, and I've got to say, he was fantastic in this as well. I thought,
Yeah.
like very, and for me, because these are really the only two roles I know him well for. I just think he looked really versatile. He looked to work in these completely different ways. I really enjoyed his performance.
He's got a fantastic voice, isn't he? It's dry and raspy, a bit like the late John Hurt.
Definitely.
He's got one of those voices that, I mean, if I hadn't have seen him, I probably would have thought that was John Hurt speaking, to be honest. He's just got a really, a really rich voice, which sounds great, especially with this kind of film, which is very quiet and understated, like you say, and very, it's quite intimate, this film, because there's not a lot of noise in this.
Not really, and I think his voice, that kind of slightly dry voice of his, actually really reflects what you were talking about, the kind of washed-up tennis star type thing. The fact that he's just sort of there doing this job and it's slightly soulless. He's got this voice that's lived. He's smoked and he's drunk and he's been out late and he's lived. His performance and his voice and everything is slightly tired. And slightly sort of careworn. He's slightly worn out by life.
He ends up going to this club quite a lot, actually, before he meets the couple, but also after as well, because he goes with the husband, and then the husband goes missing, which we'll come on to in a second. But that club scene, I thought, was really well shot. It was really noisy. That music they were playing, that DJ, was awful.
Well, and what was interesting, because you and I do this for a living as well, is that they seemed, in every time he went to the nightclub, they appeared to be playing exactly the same record, which was really annoying.
I didn't notice that, but it was very kind of EDM, wasn't it?
It was very EDM, but if it wasn't the same record, it was certainly very, very similar on the 3 or 4 occasions he goes to this nightclub. Yeah, that's his sort of escape, isn't it? It's his respite from the kind of tourist supporting hotel life. But you're right, even that isn't very kind of edifying. He kind of goes there and he gets off his face and he drinks and he gets off with women and has a good time, but actually isn't having a very good time either. And it's like it's his escape and that's all he's got, but it's not that fulfilling for sure.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because you do get the impression that he is lonely and a bit kind of, lost. But it's never overplayed. That isn't really preaching at us that is the problem with the story or the problem with his character. You just feel that he's, just drifting. Doesn't seem overly bothered by it, but he just does seem like he's not really going anywhere. He's just going around in circles.
You say that, but like in his social orbit are this local couple who have a camel farm, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah, that was bizarre, the reason for the camel being there was quite bizarre when you think about where the plot goes.
Yeah, and the camel thing is a bit of a theme through the film after the camel's been introduced, which is actually quite sweet, I thought. But he's obviously befriended and for some time has known this Spanish couple who live on the island, who are knocking on a bit, let's be honest, and are thinking about retiring and kind of ending, and then they do during the film. But they're really welcoming to him, and they've got a really sweet relationship. He speaks fluent Spanish with them, and it's very natural, and he spends time with them, almost like they're a kind of surrogate family. And I do actually wonder, thinking aloud now, whether that's a little dynamic that's set up for us. It's kind of given to us. He's the kind of son in this kind of little family of 3, and of course the family that come to stay in the hotel who gets involved with are a little family of 3 as well. And I think there's meant to be a sort of symmetry about those things, asymmetry possibly, but he has a really close and warm relationship with them, and that's clearly very loving. But it's never really explained how he's known them, how long he's known them, to what degree, and all that kind of stuff. But I just accepted that as quite a sweet little piece of the story, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I spoke to Catherine Ellis and Max Ellis. We reviewed something a few weeks ago, and they're not big fans of mystery in films where not everything is explained, or there are moments that I think what they quite like in films is for everything to be wrapped up. I quite like the mystery because that's what life is like, isn't it? Life is an open-ended book, really. You never really know which road you're going to take, and I quite like that. And this film is very similar to that, where you don't really get answers. You don't get that many answers with this. You get a few. But
Well, I don't want to jump ahead to the end, so let's keep talking about, because that's where I get the no answer thing. Let's come back to that.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's one of the issues I've got with the film, to be honest.
Indeed, but let's carry on talking about the kind of meat and potatoes of the film. I mean, I think that all the performances I think are great. I think that the cantankerous husband is a knob. I mean, you're just like, oh God, really? And it sort of emerges that their relationship has been one of convenience, because she became pregnant early on in their relationship, and he did the honourable thing and got married to her, and they've kind of forced themselves into this relationship, which then is the kind of trouble. It's the kind of scab that's being picked at throughout the film then. But, I'm being metaphoric, Philip. That's what we do.
But I'm thinking of pussy oozy scabs, which is very nice, just before dinner. Thanks for that.
Anyway, there's it all adds to this kind of mood of disquiet, and this kind of like unsettledness, that their relationship is far from perfect, and she's booked this holiday for them to get away, which is uncharacteristic for them. Apparently they go to much nicer places generally. It's a bit of a relief for them that they meet Tom, the tennis coach. Meeting him and spending time with him reveals loads of flaws in their relationship, doesn't it? And it exposes all sorts of things that are not great for them.
I kept shouting at the screen, "Stay away from her, she's trouble." And I think this film did surprise me in a lot of ways, because I kept thinking one thing and then being proved that actually that's not what was happening at all. That's not what was going on. So I kept being, I don't know, not misled, but I kept thinking the wrong things. And I think that's just me not being not trusting anyone, but I just, I was very wary of certain characters. Put it that way.
It's a twisty plot, isn't it? As you say, the sense of disquiet is underlined by us as viewers. We're on shifting sands a lot of the time. It's like, okay, this is what's going on, and then suddenly something comes along, and it's like, oh, okay, that obviously isn't what was going on.
Yeah,
I
totally
enjoyed that. That kept me really engaged.
The film explores a lot of themes: disconnection, loneliness, self-destruction. And I think those themes do create quite a tense atmosphere. So, should we talk about the elephant in the room?
The camel in the room, you mean?
The camel in the... Very good. Crashes cymbals. Cha-cha.
Which elephant in the room would you like to talk about first?
Okay, well, it had one of those endings that either you love or you hate. Normally, I don't mind an end like that, or like the end of this film. But with this film, I kept feeling, because of that brooding atmosphere, I kept thinking it was like a pressure cooker that was about to explode. It doesn't really. It doesn't really explode. I mean, there are certain questions answered. Maybe, I don't know, there could be a sequel. There could be a continuation of the story, because you are left a bit, at the end.
And far be it from me to point out the contradiction in your movie critique, Philip, but you did say a few minutes ago that you quite like the sort of real life is not full of great answers for things, is it? And
I do, but with this, I think if you're expecting something and you get that payoff, I like a film like that. But with this, I was expecting something. I don't think I really got the payoff that I was thinking was going to happen.
It's not as definitive and as clear at the end. I don't want to give it away at all, but it's not as definitive, as clear as probably you and I hoped it was going to be. Now, as you say, it's slightly a matter of taste, because you and I are the kind of people that like things, especially in a film where there's been a sort of brooding sense of mystery throughout. You and I kind of look for a nice, rational answer at the end. Other viewers, I think, would be perfectly happy that it didn't have that, and that there's ambiguity about the way it ends, and there's kind of possibility about stuff, and you still wonder about things, and you don't have a clear answer. At the time, I was irritated by that. Yes, I admit. I did want to know what had gone down.
But on reflection, it's quite a nice way to wrap it up, because the more I think about it, the more I like it, because it was different and it was quite a creative way to. Yeah, because at the time I wouldn't say I wasn't infuriated by it, but I was just left feeling a little bit flat by the wrap up. But I kind of like.
At the time, definitely, but actually, with time, you sort of, I don't know. It's sort of, there are possibilities, but it's not like it ends dead and sudden without any explanation. There's a sort of part of a vague explanation, which you sort of hang on to as a viewer. I certainly did, and kind of like, oh, okay, that means this has been going on, but actually you still don't really know. And I do quite like that. I don't think it's a cynical move to make sure that there's a prequel or a sequel or whatever. I hope not. I think it's just the way the story is told, and reflecting on it, I quite enjoyed it. But at the time, yes, it irritated the hell out of me.
Yeah, I'm the same, because the more I think about it, the more I understand why the filmmakers have done that. But at the time, it did me. It wasn't like, I wasn't angry or anything, but it just like, oh, okay. I wasn't really 100% sure.
As soon as the credits started to roll, we both went, oh, God, okay, are they not going to tell us what happened? But it sort of did, but, leaving a lot open for you to sort of join the dots yourself, I think, for sure.
Yeah. So is it a psychological thriller, which it's been billed as, or is it a drama? Is it I don't know, is it a mystery? I would say it's more a mystery than a psychological thriller.
Yes, probably. That you don't get the sort of peril aspect that happens in some psychological drama.
You get elements of it, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
When Dave goes missing, you get that kind of intrigue and the thrill of what's happened to him.
And I quite like the way that the police operation happens. They sort of don't leave anything unturned, and
I was quite partial. Yes, that I quite liked that part. Those parts.
Just the whole police thing.
We
do like a man in uniform, let's be honest.
Especially a bearded one.
A bearded man in uniform. Yeah, but
he was very funny though. He had no patience though with him after a while. He was when he pulled him over and he was sleeping in his car. Tom was sleeping in his car, and obviously they'd known each other because obviously it's a very small place, isn't it, where he's living. Everyone knows each other's business, and he kind of let him off. It's like favour for a favour, they were doing each other favours, and his patience soon wore thin.
Well, I like that relationship because, again, a bit like the older couple with the camel farm, the policeman is just a person who's obviously there all year round, who is somebody that he's got a relationship with and known each other, as you say, is a bit give and take with them, and they know each other, and that's nice. But that is superimposed then when the husband's gone missing and it becomes a bit more serious and it gets elevated to the national police. That local policeman is kind of swept aside, by these sort of beige suited senior policemen that kind of swoop in from the kind of national police. I just love the way they didn't mess around. The very first interview that national policeman has with the coach and the wife who's lost her husband, he lets them talk, he lets them tell them, he lets them dig their hole about their evidence and the gaps in it and all that kind of stuff. And then he just pushes a piece of paper across the table and says, well, I know you're lying.
It was brilliant.
So good. And he doesn't let up. And it's actually, him keeping the pressure on everybody and truly having one of those inquisitive open minds about, well, it could have been this scenario or that. All of these things could have happened. I really enjoyed that kind of element of the film.
Yeah, it was great. There's some great character arcs, I thought, in this. And, some good character studies. So it's called Islands. It's released in UK and Irish cinemas on the 12th of September. It's also coming to the BFI Player. They're going to be streaming it on the Player on the 27th of October. So there you go. So star rating, Chris de Burr. Burr?
It's Burr. I'm going to give it 4. The reason this isn't a perfect film is the ending. And, we've already talked about that at length, so I don't need to go over it again. It just would have been neater if there was a more definitive ending. Yes, with time, I have grown to accept and love the ending. But, when the film finished, I was like, that could have been a perfect film, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I'm also going for 4. It reminds me of when I saw Weapons. When I saw Weapons, I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting what I saw. I mean, we both went to see the Weapons director's previous film, Barbarian, at the cinema, and we loved it from the start, didn't we? I mean, we loved it like straight away. Our reaction was very positive afterwards. But with Weapons, I wasn't really sure, but I want to see it again. I'm not saying I necessarily want to see Islands again. I would see it again, I think, if somebody asked me that hadn't seen it.
I agree. I would, because no, having just rabbited on about it for the last God knows how long, the pair of us, I kind of want to look for the clues again. I want to go back through it and kind of and with different eyes, and I want to kind of look at it again. I thought it was a proper movie. This film, it was beautifully directed, wonderfully shot. I mean, just so many sort of beautiful shots and stuff. The soundtrack I thought was brilliant. It really kind of captured this kind of old-fashioned kind of mystery sort of thing, quite swirling, quite brooding. I think the performances are brilliant. I think the casting was very good. I think each of them kind of fulfills their roles very well. I think it's a great, great proper film, and it's absolutely without hesitation, I'm recommending it to people. I mean, I've already been doing it this week. I've been telling people, go and watch this film. It's really good.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much, Christopher. I got it right that time. Not Boer. I'm so tempted to say Boer because there's a U and an E in there.
You're just what you want. So.
Do you want to sell yourself? Is there anything you want to plug?
I will be playing pop records at the Cock Tavern on Saturday this week. I don't know when this is going out. Let's just say this week. Go along on Saturday. If I'm there, you'll be lucky. But you are also peddling your wares this weekend, are you not?
King's Arms on Saturday. Not far. Well, I suppose Soho is not that far, as the crow flies. Go and see DJ Christopher at the Cock Tavern in Kennington, and he'll be playing pop records. Pop records. You taking your vinyls? Jeremy hates that when I call them vinyls. It's not vinyls, it's vinyl.
Vinyl.
I know, but I love saying vinyls.
No, bugs the hell out of me. No, don't go there.
What vinyl will you be taking?
I'm not taking any vinyl with me.
I want you to. I want some video evidence.
What you like. They've got nothing to play vinyl on, so there's little point in me breaking my back and taking it with me to a venue that doesn't have somewhere I can play it. So I shan't be doing that. Bye.